It's the Awake Space with Laurie Rivers. I'm your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. And oh my God, I just recorded the whole introduction only to realize I hadn't hit record. So I had to start it over again. So pardon me while I readjust things because I realize I'm not talking directly into my mic while I have to look at my camera that way. We're playing around with camera angles right now. We survived the heat wave in the UK, and here we are, 1st of June. 1st of June. In June, astrology is interesting. It's kind of we've got more change because Jupiter's going to change signs into Leo. That should be, it'll be something. It'll be something. I'm going to go through June's astrology. We're going to talk about how you could best make use of this energy. I'm going to go through a couple of my slides from the 2026 preparations and predictions event I did back in June and December of 2025, where I famously talked about space lasers. And in fact, my archivist, who really doesn't like attention. That's why I don't do big name shout outs. He really doesn't like it, but he is wonderful, and he has made a space lasers predictions and proof PDF that I've sent out. I'm gonna pretend that I've already sent this out as I pre-record this a week early. Oh my God. Anyway, it's actually really good. He is amazing, and I love his sense of style and design. Anyway, we have a Space Lasers PDF because called it, and so I will prove that by reading from my slides from last year. If you really want to see the proof, all Awake Space community members have access for streaming the video of the 2026 preparations and predictions event, where I give you a heads up on how to use the energy, and then month by month, this is what I think we're going to see in the headlines. June 28th of this year, I am doing the 2027 preparations and predictions event. This year, we're doing something new. We're going to give everybody who signs up a digital copy of the astrology planner for 2027. And then I'll have a way you can get a physical copy, but I can't just give that, So, but you'll get a digital copy if you want to print it out, make your own notebook, things like that. Everybody has their own way of doing things. So there's that. Yeah, so we're going to have you prepped for June this time. I'm still runny from the heat. It was, I'll talk about it in the monologue. So get your tea, get your coffee, get your matcha, get your Red Bull, get your H2O. And whether we're taking the kids to the park, going to the pool, getting a hot girl walking, getting a hot guy walking, taking our friends, I don't know, to the airport or getting on a train. Maybe we're taking a walk through the park with the puppies, or we've got the kitty in the backpack, or if we're doing the laundry together, hopping in the shower. I know you, Gabby, and we smell like coconut. I get it. Thanks. We do it together. Let's go. Let's talk about things. Let's talk about the astrology of June. I don't know if I told you guys that I went to the podcast show. I might have. Don't hold me to remembering anything right now because my brain is addled from the heat. And it was starting to get warm last week, warmer than normal for May in the UK. My God, was brutal. Yesterday was 95 degrees. It was the hottest day on record ever for a day in May in the United Kingdom. And in my 2026 year ahead, I had historic heat indexes in the United Kingdom and Europe and Northern Hemisphere in general. When I make predictions, I'm not supposed to experience it, okay? I'm not, but I did. Anyway, I went to this podcast show, and it was sponsored by the big tech companies like YouTube and Spotify and Apple and all of that. And I wasn't going there looking for partnerships or anything. I really like being an indie. I really like being listener supported. I like the fact that you guys know I'm not coming to you with anyone else's agenda but my work. I'm giving it to you as best as I can. And there's no there's no financial interference. So it's one of the reasons I'm really, really proud that we're listener supported. And that's why it gives so much in community. Like it's easy to get overwhelmed by how much content is in the awake space. Like so much. And I go live a lot. But if you miss a live, it's okay. I will do another one. And I put some up as a recording and some I don't. It just depends on the quality. Like if we're just doing a chit chat catch up, I don't always put those replays up. If there's important information or all hell's breaking loose out in the world and I'm giving advice or information about it, then yeah, I replay those. Half of those we're connecting as community because that's how we work through the energy of this year. When I was at the show, I was looking for vendors that I might be able to work with post production. I found one. I think they're pretty cool. And I found an app I'm hoping to learn how to use. So be prepared if you're in the Patreon. I'm going to be testing those things so you get to see all the BTS. And Patreon is the Awake Space community. I use it interchangeably. Patreon is the platform, and they are dedicated to creatives being able to find their people and be supported by having a patron, just like artists have always had. Whether you're a podcaster or even a scientist, like we used to be able to do original work that hasn't existed for like 20 years. Being original and not beholden to some large financial interest. I'm really proud of what we do here, and people were really, really shocked by what this little middle-aged woman has managed to accomplish. Because they'd be like, "No, I don't want to use that, and I don't want to have those ads on my podcast, and my audience wouldn't like." Some of those companies. I want the integrity here. I've monetized us in ways that match what I think is important, my values and my ethics. I don't need that. Thanks. I don't know. It was kind of wild. It was kind of wild looking at people scramble for those companies' attention. And I'm like, so you wanted to leave your 9 to 5, you wanted to be independent, and then you run to the same people you quit your job from to get their approval? That somehow makes you real? I'm not judging them. I'm judging the programming involved. I have been so out of the norm for so long, like really. I mean, I dipped back into the corporate world briefly and I went into the tech space, the hardware space briefly, like 18 months. And then I left because I like doing things my own way. I like working for myself. I like people say, oh, it's risky. And I'm like, I don't know. One of the things, maybe I should talk about this. When I went back into the corporate world and I went back into a pretty cool job. That's why I took it. It was my little girl dream job. I was working for the laptop division of a well-known hardware company. And like, I have been a computer geek since Pong. Okay. First time I saw Pong, where it made the TV actually interesting because I was not a television watcher. I love to read, but the TV was so passive and I don't like being told how to imagine things. So I have a very, very good imagination and I'd be like, I don't know. I've read the book. I don't think that person talks like that. This is messing with my own mind movie. So Pong made the TV interesting. And that was 1977. I was 8 years old. And then my dad thought computers were toys and expensive toys and wouldn't get me one. He did get us an Atari console where you use cassette tapes, and I coded my own video game. It was a tank that exploded flowers and made music. That was my game. I was 11. Anyway, back in my day. Anyway, at that job, and it was the perfect job knowing that 2020 was going to blow up. And remember, I'd been warning people for years to be ready for 2020. It blows up. I didn't see a pandemic. I saw massive systemic change, that everything would change as a result of things that happened in that year. Within the first 2 weeks, I got to go to NVIDIA. And I got to meet Jensen Huang, and I got no ick vibes off of him. I get ick vibes off of lots of other people. Like when I met the people from Intel, I was like, there was one lady who was pretty high up with them that I liked. But the rest of them, I was like, "Ugh," throwing up in my mouth a little. But, and I told them their marketing tactics were stuck in 2000. 5. I wish I would have been diagnosed ADHD when I was a kid, but maybe it was good they didn't. But being postmenopausal with zero filter is a hoot. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, I got to meet Jensen Huang, and his wife's name is Laurie. It's spelled the same way as mine because I had my little name tag on. And I got no grossness off of him. His employees are really, really loyal. I met people who had been with him since the beginning. I have also worked for a Taiwanese tech company, and that's who I was with. I was a little bit of a secret weapon there on the marketing. But when I walked in, um, to this thing, people were a little shocked because again, I worked for a Taiwanese company that wasn't known for hiring non-Asian people, because it's a Taiwanese company. There's a whole story involved with how that happened. But anyway, he looked at me and he's like, "You're with this company?" I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "You're not Taiwanese?" And I was like, "Nope, I'm a secret weapon." And he started to laugh. He's like, "Oh, wow, my wife's name is Lori." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "What do you think?" So they were developing machine learning or AI tools for use in content creation and gaming. And so a lot of the editing tools that we use now, or things that streamline, or the AI green screens, so you didn't have to have a massive setup. When the RTX release happened, RTX is their graphic cards. I saw that being discussed and worked on 19. Okay. There was no hope of laying people off. And he just did an interview and he was calling the CEOs that are using AI as an excuse to lay people off as short-sighted. And people are like, "Oh, well, he benefits from AI." He does benefit from AI. They've done a lot of development on AI, but it wasn't with the intention of people losing their jobs. He retains his employees. And the one thing I know from working with Taiwanese companies is the welfare and well-being of their employees was very high. You know, if you're going to be lazy or you're going to be dishonest, you're not going to last long. Okay. But if you're a hard worker, and I don't mean like they don't expect you to work off the clock, unless, I mean, okay, they do and they don't. Sometimes the global headquarters forgets that you need to sleep in America and there's different time zones. That happens. And in fact, my younger colleagues were a little horrified when they said, "The VP reached out to you last night. Why didn't you answer?" I said, "Because I was asleep." And they were like, "Yeah, but we answer anyway." And I was like, "I don't. I'm asleep." And I'm like, "I will explain it to him." They're like, "No, no, don't." I'm like, "No, I will." I'd be like, "Sir, I'm 51 years old. I'm a delicate flower. I need sleep. I'll talk to you when it's time. What works for you?" They were like, "Oh my God." And they were like, it is understandable. Anyway, so I know a lot of the people who did R&D on a lot of the AI tools. I'm not talking about large language models, okay, that like ChatGPT, Claude, those things. I'm talking about people who worked on the machine learning that works inside the tech. There's different kinds of artificial intelligence or machine learning. And I think machine learning is the better name for it. And I'm saying this because we're going to see hiring pick up again because either companies are going to fail because they let go so many people that they don't have efficiency and effectiveness, or we're going to see rehiring. Okay, that's part of what's coming up. But I am going to say, when it comes to Jensen Huang, I actually met him and his employees are loyal AF. And I met people who'd been with them since 93 when they started. That's also all of the meeting rooms in the new NVIDIA building are named after Star Trek stuff. And you have to be old like me to get the OG Star Trek stuff, I think, because a lot of the younger people did not get how cool it was to have a tricorder meeting room. I was like, what? What? No way. That's the coolest. But yeah, I think people can be out of touch. I don't think he's as out of touch as some. If we burn it down, we burn down our own houses. We need to look for people not as saints, not as knights in shining armor, but we need to hold some hope that there are billionaires that don't want to wreck the planet, that there are billionaires that understand the the human capital that we have. And I do feel like he is one of them. I think there are a few more. Mackenzie Scott is another. And we have to hope they're willing to counter what these other people are doing in a variety of ways. And I think that may be the case. You can't tar everyone with the same brush. It doesn't mean they're without flaws. I'm not an apologist for it, but at this point we need a billionaire war because the average person is not able to grab the pitchfork and burn down the castle, basically. So they too enjoy history, right? So and they expect that reaction. So we need people who are willing to countermand and counteract what these people are doing. So, anywho, let's talk about June's astrology. Let's talk about June's astrology. We don't need to talk about no more billionaires. All right, coming up next, I'm going to go through what I talked about for June. I'm going to give you the big idea for June and how you can use the energy, and then we'll go through the astrology. Oh, I tell you. I kind of feel like Grover. I feel like Grover. Because, there's a monster at the end of this book, and he goes, "Don't turn the page." That's kind of how I feel as I have to get ready for 2027. I'm like, I don't know. I know there's wonky astrology. I don't know. We'll make it. I know we survive. I just hope somewhat comfortably. Anyway, June's big idea is adapt with analysis, which so it's use your brains. Don't just believe everything you see, every headline you read. Mid-year favors refinement. We've got reevaluate your commitments with fresh eyes. So just because you agreed to something doesn't mean you can't renegotiate the terms. Maybe it worked before or for the reality that was, and moving forward, something isn't working now. So you can reevaluate. Distinguish inspired effort from fear-driven actions. So if you're doing something out of a panic, you're probably working harder than you need to. If you're inspired, the action kind of lines up in front of you and it's easy. In fact, I often, when I'm not listening to my guidance and then things start to hiccup and hiccup and hiccup, because my guidance will be like, "Hey, go that way. That way's easier." And I'll be like, "I don't know how I could accomplish that." And my guidance is like, "No, no, I got you. Just go that way." And I'm like, "No, I must do it this way because this is what I know." And then there'll be hiccup and hurdle and hiccup and hurdle. And my guides will be like, "But that way's available." And eventually that's the option, right? I've learned the minute I have a little hiccup to just turn the direction that's being pointed out to me. If perfection is the enemy of done, okay? If you think it all has to be perfect to get moving, you're wrong. You're wrong because what you're trying to do is have the end without the journey. You're never going to get to the end without the journey. You're never going to show up in perfection, and you're really going to see that in June. And then choose correction as a strength. So if you have to redo something, if you have to rethink something, if you have to make changes, then don't look at it as like, I fucked up. Oh, no, I made mistakes. Don't look at it that way. Be like, oh, this is great. I caught this and now it's going to be even better. So those are all the mindset, like die hard rules for June if you really want to make it through. And again, if you're in the Patreon, you actually get access to the recording. You get access. All supporting members have access for streaming for this. And so just go in. If you can't find it, just ask in the Awake Space Lounge and we'll point it out to you. But the pinned post, actually, there's a pinned post. It has everything. The free information, the tier dependent information is all there. Like it's a free post because you can see if you want to know what you get, it's all there. It's a lot. Okay. All right, how to prepare for June. Be prepared for social networks and other broadcast media to be glitchy or switching messages suddenly. Learn how to make yourself immune to propaganda. Learn how to fact check. Learn how not to get caught up in mob behavior or group think. Remember, one of my biggest concerns about Pluto in Aquarius is forced conformity. Okay, so you're seeing a form of it with fascism, but you also see it on the so-called left. I say so-called left because I don't think, at least in the United States, we have a verifiable left. I think when I'm hearing Eisenhower policies, it's not really left. That's how far right we moved a long time ago. You want to be in shape, walking, low impact cardio, light weights, or do activities with your hands, crochet, knitting, embroidery, cross stitch, woodworking that require concentration. It's better to start and finish a bunch of small projects than get overwhelmed by a big project. One of the reasons I'm saying do that is, one, we're going to need to be, our physicality needs to be up, and then doing projects with our hands reduces anxiety. Proven fact. Okay. It reduces anxiety. What doesn't reduce anxiety is doom scrolling. What doesn't reduce anxiety is staying up in your head. If you actually take a physical action, like doing some yoga, or taking a walk, working out. If you have mobility issues, I get it. Okay. You can still do things, something creative. There was an artist, her last name Mitchell, and she broke her neck in a swimming accident, and she ended up painting with her teeth. There was a after school special about her, and in the early 80s, and my grandma watched that with me. My grandma actually bought one of her prints. It stuck with me. You know, I'm 56 years old, and I remember being, I don't know, 9 or 10. And my grandma saying, "Look at that, Laurie. You see, Laurie, no matter what, there's always something you can do." And that stayed with me. There is always something you can do. There is something to move the energy. And, you know, I've been going to the Victoria and Albert Museum. It's close to where I'm staying. And I am totally blind in my left eye, which makes navigating crowds super fun. And my right eye is low vision. And my glass is correct, so I can work and I can, you know, still do life stuff. It's not the same as having good eyesight, even though the right eye really does get corrected to like 20/25, which is cool for driving. But it's not the same as having naturally good eyesight. It's a prosthetic. And one of the things that hit me as I was, and I might get a little emotional, as I was walking through this art gallery, I was like, you know, I don't know if I will have eyesight into my late 70s or 80s. It could go. And as I was walking around looking at medieval art and artisanship, I was like, my God, well, at least I've seen all these beautiful things. I wasn't thinking about what I would lose. I was thinking of the richness of life. So I think that's really important to remember. The rest of June, good stuff. I hope you got your garden in, because gardens will yield amazingly in June 2026. Invest in shade cloth if you have too much direct sunlight. CSAs and other direct farm purchases will be budget friendly. Learn to preserve food through canning, freezing, and dehydrating. So you can get a hold of your county extension office. All counties have one, and they have information on canning, freezing, drying, dehydrating. There's community groups. There might even be mom groups. Check Facebook, check your local listings. So there's that. So let's talk about the astrology, and I'll do a deeper dive on this for the magazine tier in the community. So June 1st, we have Mercury moving into Cancer. So Mercury ingress Cancer, and don't worry, it's going to go back into Gemini because it goes retrograde this month. We've got on the 2nd, we have Sun sextile Saturn. That'll be an invigorating day. The 3rd, we have Mercury square Neptune. Yo ho, blow the man down. That's an old pirate song. Venus is conjunct Jupiter on June 9th. That's a great day. That'll be very, very interesting on a personal level. That can be really rewarding. So looking forward to that. And we've got Mercury square Saturn. June 13th, Venus ingresses Leo. And that's we're all going to be popping with that. And then June 14th, we've got the Gemini new moon at 24 degrees of Gemini, the Gemini new moon. Of course, I'll talk about that in depth here on the podcast. June 15th, we have Venus sextile Uranus. June 16th, we've got Venus trine Neptune. Ooh la la, that's nice. June 17th, Venus is in opposition to Pluto. That's a little powerful. And then Chiron moves into Taurus on the 19th. I'll talk about that just to prevent the fear mongering. Jupiter square Neptune on the 18th. It's a very busy mid-June period. We've got the solstice on the 21st as the sun ingresses into Cancer. We have Venus trine Saturn and the sun square Neptune on the... Hang on a second. No. And then Mercury is retrograde. On June 29th, Mercury is retrograde. It moves on the 29th, and it's in Cancer, and it's going to start moving backwards. Same day, we got the Capricorn full moon at 8 degrees, 14 minutes. Jupiter ingresses into Leo, and things start getting hot, hot, hot. So if in early June you have colder weather or cooler weather, and you're like, Laurie said it'd be hot, she lied. First of all, I'm sorry you feel betrayed, but I never said it would be hot in early June. Second of all, that those historic heat indexes are for July and August. But Mercury retrograde starts at the end of June in Cancer, so that should be interesting, and I'll have the survival guide up for patrons, members of the Awake Space, because, they help make this happen. All right, we've got Mars moving into Gemini as well on June 28th. It's going to be a little stabby as we move into the summer. Remember, July kicks off with Mars and Uranus conjunct. But I have theories on that. We'll talk about that as we move through June as well. All right, we're going to take a break here. But that's June in a nutshell. When you ask me questions about you and your chart, it's a problem because astrologers, professional astrologers, shouldn't ever read for free. We don't. That's not what we do. We're just like doctors don't. However, we do a lot of educating and informing, okay? There will be some travel issues. There really will. And some of this may have to do with Ebola. It may be to prevent the spread of Ebola. I don't think you need to panic. I don't. I think it is a serious situation, but it's not going to impact most of you. Okay. That's important. So here's some of what I was talking about in the 2026 year ahead. And I'm not going to repeat the whole thing. There's 3-4 slides. Actually, yeah, there's multiple slides of what I think is going to happen. And I do that in the 2026 year ahead. Again, all patrons at the $5 level and up get that as a perk, and you can find the link in the pinned post in the Awake Space community. In the beginning of June, there's a lot of talk about nationalism or national pride or nostalgic propaganda. In the US, you can see a youth movement hit the streets or the internet, and or younger candidates get louder and make moves to push progressive values. That was something that, choir boy, what's his face, didn't like, the Johnson. He's such a Johnson. Anyway, people are discussing the rights of women and children and or families throughout June. The economy is picking up a little bit. Supply chain is improving a little bit. There could be a move to reuse or repurpose shopping malls and other spaces for housing. So keep your eye on that. One of the things I'm saying about the economy picking up, yes, there is inflation. A lot of the talk about, oh no, oil supply, Straits of Hormuz, 1/5, that's it, 1/5, 5. Okay, we got 5 fingers. If there is this much oil, a whole handful, and 1/5 goes down, there's still 4/5. I know, they're like, oh no, we lost 1/5. Yeah, you got 4/5. Did it need to double in price? How does that statistically make sense? Explain that one to me. Other than greed, So, they'll say, oh, you're oversimplifying it. Like, no, actually, I think you are, and I think you're price gouging. Anyway, there's still one step forward, two steps back energy happening. So progressives are still at odds with the establishment, and it's important to tune into creative energy to keep a forward focus. That's like my biggest piece of advice for this year. Stop letting them rob you of your joy. Okay, just stop it. You need it. We can't create a counterbalance to them if everybody's depressed. Okay, they win. Stop feeding the nothing, turn around. Anyway, okay. Step by step energy is what makes progress at this time. Rash actions and extreme behavior will not fare well. You could see authorities still trying to oppress peoples around the world, either through acts of war or through civil oppression. The first week of June, these tactics will not succeed because of resistance. June 2nd could see some kind of financial issue. It could be a rollback of a fiscal policy, cutting of interest rates, or a regulation restored or rescinded. That's global. And I find it very interesting. What's the new Fed chair doing? He's going to cut the rates. So, which is a bad idea, by the way. But so, have I ever been accurate? Have I ever been accurate? I don't know. I wrote this in May, June of 2025. I don't know. Have I been? All right. Windstorms continue in June. This could be tropical storms, strange wind shears, or microbursts. Hurricanes could come in early. Second week of June could see dust and sandstorms or erosion causing events. There's a lot of big weather with hail, thunder, lightning, and flooding. On the evening west coast on June 6th, we could see a historic event. It might be June 7th in Europe, Middle East, or North Africa, and that's because of time zones. Could be strange rain events, flooding, or something of a spiritual or religious matter, or all of it. We could see conflict erupt, ceasefires fail, or it could be a rocket or satellite fails to launch. Could see issues with transportation, especially military transports or marine boats. We could see solar flares or geomagnetic storms. Seismic activity increases, especially around the 11th through the 13th. There's definitely improvement in the economy. Could be housing market or interest rates become slightly more favorable. And I just want to remind you, it's the midterms, right? So politicking. Employment numbers could stabilize worldwide, or there's some kind of economic stability that does show up. It could also be inflation. I'd be like, that's the constant. But I do think there's something that stabilizes a little bit when it comes to jobs and work. To me, it's more of an economic boost than it is. I mean, inflation is going to keep going for right now. But people appear to have the upper hand. So that's exciting. So there we go. If you want the rest of what I talked about for in June, the end of June, the volume gets dialed up. It's very loud. It's very loud. It's very intense, and it's setting us up. So first part of June, we'll see. It's not as dramatic, but do we need? I think some of it's adrenal fatigue. I think we're all tired of it. But there we are. There we are with June, the June astrology. I'm going to do some shout outs for patrons and then talk more about how you can use the energy personally in using the work and the framework I created, whether it's living by Luna or you're looking at healing the money wound. And we'll talk about that and why being in charge of your consciousness is so important right now. Man, let me tell you, that was some crazy heat last week. I recorded this whole episode a week ago. I'm going to give you some community news and some member shout outs, and then we'll get back and talk about how you can use the energy of June, given all the wild astrology. Don't let people talk you into like doom and gloom, etc. It's still, we're like on the last hot day, by the way. I've been trying to get myself recorded ahead of time, which is kind of interesting on a current events type of show. We talk about the energy, we feel into it, but I've been trying to free up my time because I'm trying to get the books done. Living by Luna, members of the community know this is not how it's going to be, but this is just my copy to read through for the final pass. And I was going to do an audiobook, but it's really visual. So I decided I'm not going to do it as an audiobook because the audio part would be so short. I mean, there are so many bits that are visual on purpose. So I'm going to do it presentation style and there'll be like a mini course. So that's what we're going to do with that. Healing the Money Wound. I'm still going through the manuscript. I've been reading bits and bobs of it to patrons as I go through looking fine tooth comb for any last minute changes on the manuscript. The cover's done. Happy with the cover. And then I will get the mini courses done for that. It's been a wild and woolly trip, It really has. I've had a really good time here in London. I still have some more time to go. The weather cools down tomorrow, which is Sunday. So as you're listening to this on Monday, the weather's already cooled down and it's raining again. And I couldn't be more happy with that. I look forward to the rain. I have all the gear for that. I will be heading to the shambles. One of the things I've been doing in the Awake Space community is posting videos that I've been making in the Victoria and Albert Museum, either explaining the astrology that goes with whatever object I've found that they haven't talked about, or talking about the history of astrology in context to some of the timelines that are on the wall and putting things in context. I can say, hey, look, we didn't use zero until uh, the 10th century, trying to put into context why the Hellenists, the original Hellenists, wouldn't have used aspects the same way we do. They couldn't make a round circle without making triangles first. They didn't have the math to do it, and zero wasn't put into play until the Islamic Empire started using it in the 10th century. Just like, Galileo Galilei got prosecuted by the Inquisition because he was using Copernicus's work, say that 5 times, and Copernicus had gotten it from the Islamic scholars of the Islamic Empire. People forget that the Spanish Inquisition was started because the Islamic Empire extended into, like Sicily, in through the Mediterranean, southern France, into the Iberian Peninsula. Iberian Peninsula being Spain and Portugal. And then in 1492, they were pushed out. The Inquisition started, I think, 1437. So there was a push and this fight between the two empires, the Holy Roman Empire and the Islamic Empire, because of Islamophobia or the emphasis of the church in our history. Because of that, the actual facts astrologically have gotten skewed as well. And so I've been talking about that in the community. I know people get excited about it. I'm excited about it. So maybe that's why I'm sharing my passions. But I've been sharing I'm like a little docent through the museum, and I love history. I love art. I love artisanship, and I love sharing it with people. And astrology reflects everything. There isn't anything we can't tie into astrology. All right. So that's super fun. Patrons, you still have time to sign up using your discount for the 2027 predictions and preparations. You save 50%. That's at all levels. I gave the higher levels first dibs on the tickets, and now it's open to all members. If you want to sign up for not charts and we already did charts and channeling. That's up in the community shop. You can get that. It's a 3.5-hour video where Matilda and I went through June, July, and August. Now, if you want the 2027 year ahead, that comes with an astrology planner. You'll get the digital copy and first dibs on any physical copies that I have processed. I'm probably going to go through Lulu for that, get it spiral bound, make it easier to work with. We'll see how it goes. And then you'll get the recording as well if you register, even if you don't attend for the 2027 event. Excited about that. You also get a Q&A, and I record that, and that gets sent out to you. No one else gets that recording with the Q&A. It's pretty fun. So there's all that. It's going to be a wild and woolly month. That event happens on June 28th of 2026. Normally we do it around the solstice. I'm kind of glad we're not because I'm traveling and I got sick and it was really hot. But I've still had a really good time. It's perception based. I haven't sat there and go, why? While I'm traveling, am I sick? Because you get sick. It's nothing serious. It's a summer cold. It's more annoying. Why was it super hot? Because it's super hot because of climate change. It cools down this week. And I do worry for the people in Europe, UK, Ireland, Europe, with end of July in through August. So if you're from those areas, if you can, please invest in a small air conditioning unit for at least one room of your house to keep cool, or an ice maker or something, because if you think this was hot, it's going to be a lot worse once we get into the summer. And Iberian Peninsula, again, that's Spain and Portugal, do be ready. Okay. And I think we could see fires. I think we could see brush fires in Ireland and the UK. I really do, with the heat that's on the way, end of July and August. So I am going to give a precaution on that. So just be aware. I know my mic was too close in the last segment. Sorry, guys. It's an interesting mix when you're traveling and trying to set up your recording area. But when I investigated the podcast studios, it's a negligible difference, truly. Most of them, unless it's like BBC, right? So anyway, let's give shout outs to our newest members. And we're still working on some glitches. I highly suggest you don't use Apple Pay if you do sign up for the community. We're getting still reports that there are glitches with payments on that. It's really annoying. But anyway, let's shout out our newest members. We've got the Community Garden. Welcome, Community Garden. We're all into community gardening here. Priyanka, Jen DeLo, Heather, Riley, Stephanie, John, Stephanie, Katrina, Vonda, May, Cara, Demi, Still Me, Harmony, Jasmine, Amethyst, Ariel, Nikki, Kristen, Yella, and Melissa, Catherine Marie, Jonesy, Marjorie, Karen, Laura, Barbara, Lisa. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Awake Space community. We're going to be going through more stuff. I hope that full moon did you well. And we're going to talk about how you can use the rest of the energy for June on a personal level. And see you in the lives in the community. So with all of that information that I gave you about June's astrology, what do you do with it, right? To me, knowledge is not power. Power is when you know how to use the knowledge. You can have a head full of facts and figures and get nowhere in life if you don't know what to do with it. How do you apply it? That's why I teach what I teach. So, again, number one, stop falling for the outrage. I have told you over and over and over and over, and you might be new, so just understand, I keep telling you, being overinformed and being outraged does not make you a better person. It doesn't. Virtue is our greatest shadow. The need to be seen as the good guy, the need to be seen as the virtuous one, the need to be above reproach. That's our greatest shadow, because that is where we are most easily manipulated into doing things against our own interests. Is I'm on the winning team. I'm on the more moral side. Okay. I'm not saying don't have morals. I'm not saying don't have principles. But when you're so attached to them that you can't use your critical thinking, that is when you are most easily used. And I talked a little bit about that last week, in how people fall for rhetoric. People fall for propaganda. Why do you think they have all those influencers out there talking politics? Okay. And I remember back in the 90s, back in my day, back in the 90s, as a young political activist, getting into big arguments with my supposed left-leaning family about the Democrat Party. And I was like, guys, they've sold out. They're not who you think they are. They are not on the side of labor. They are not on the side of the little guy. Clinton's welfare to work program was absolutely disastrous in basically wrecking the social safety net and the job market. I know I had to actually use that program. And the difference was for me, and this was where I got a huge education through life experience. I came back to the States, highly educated, highly qualified. Nobody believed my resume, and no one trusted emails. So no one believed my references. It was very frustrating. I managed to get, because I had worked in parcel shipping Okay. And I'd worked at DHL, I'd worked at TNT Skypack back in the 90s. I got a hold of one of my managers and I was like, hey, this is the situation. You wouldn't be able to like DHL me a little packet full of recommendation because nobody believes me. And they were like, oh, absolutely. And anyway, I was having trouble getting a job and I had 2 kids to feed. And everybody was like, well, you're a single mom now. You should just take what you can get. Isn't that a wonderful concept? So you're a single mom now. You left your husband. Yes, because it was a dangerous situation. And I was trying to keep my children safe. Just saying. That kind of moral superiority. Oh, well, you don't have a man. Yeah. That puts a lot of women in danger. And it did then too. And so I was at the mercy and I had to, at the mercy of a system, at the mercy of a society, which I already knew was bogus. And I was not going to get stuck in a job that would keep me right in the poverty line. It wasn't going to happen. And so I'm like, no, I didn't go to college for this. I was the first woman on my mom's side of the family to go. I had inspired multiple people coming up behind me to go get their education. There was no way I was going, oh, well, there it is. And now I'm down on my luck. That it was just no. And so when I went in to it was actually Multnomah County's Department of Health and Human Services to apply. I had to do it 3 times because the first 2 times I was dressed too nice, even though I bought all my clothes at Goodwill and my outfit maybe cost me $20. I was just really good at finding designer stuff. And so I had to dress down, not wash my hair, walk in kind of stinky, and I got help then. And the minute I got help, I filed complaints because you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to fit the narrative of someone about what it is to need help. And so, and all I wanted was access to the computers. I did not have access to a computer. I wanted to be able to do my own job search and I would find a job. I knew I would. I was dumb because I went in through the domestic violence program, but I felt guilty for taking away resources from people who really needed it. By the way, I had no money. I needed it. Remember that virtue and the principles and how that can hurt us? That hurt me and my family. Okay. So I left that, went on to the welfare to work program. They sent me a qualified candidate to multiple interviews to jobs that had zero opportunity for promotion, zero opportunity to ever do better. And those companies were getting subsidized to hire me because they were saying basically if you were on welfare, you were unhireable. And so they were going to do you a favor. I met a lot of people in the welfare office who were considered unhireable, who were very hireable. They just didn't know how to communicate it. Just like I didn't understand the system because I had not gone through it or grown up with it, they did not understand the system of getting hired. So in there were all these classes they offered through that program, but it was in middle class language. And if you didn't grow up middle class or upper working class, and if you didn't have those opportunities or that education, those classes just were like, they didn't make any sense. So while I'd be sitting there working in the resource room, looking for my own things, jumping the hoops I needed to jump just to get access to while I looked for things, right? I helped, I don't know, at least a dozen people tool their resumes. One of them I'll never forget. Well, there's 2 I will never forget. One had never really had any real employment, not even working at 7-Eleven, and was maybe challenged. Okay. They certainly were socially challenged. They certainly hadn't had access to resources. And I worked with this person to find out what their skills were. We made her a little resume and she got a job at a dry cleaner. And that was the excitement she had. That was a really good job for her because she had never had anything halfway decent. And so it was humbling because I was arrogant. I know it's hard to believe, right? I was young. I was arrogant. I had very strong opinions. I know. Again, hard to believe. I know. But I learned a lot through that process. The other woman was older and she had 5 children and had been a homemaker for 25 years. And all of the advice she was getting was, well, take what you can get because, you haven't really worked. You ran a household for 25 years. So you did procurement, you did the budgeting, you allocated resources, you did scheduling. Okay. So we went through a wide variety. I think I spent like 2 hours with her and we made a resume and we started looking at jobs and I started translating because she didn't know what to do. Her husband left her. She had a mortgage and 5 kids. What was she going to do? And everybody telling her, well, take what you can get. Oh, so frustrating. Or open a daycare. Maybe you don't want to open a daycare. God bless the people who do, but not everybody wants to. So that was an eye-opening experience, and that was in 1998, and it was due to Clinton's welfare to work policy that people thought was so great. And I was like, how the hell is a corporation getting subsidies to hire people they already need to hire and then holding those people in practical indentured servitude? You were on the line, and I ended up getting a job with a wonderful not-for-profit, and I kind of skirted through, but I'll never forget. They hired me, and after my probation was over, the 3 months, they went to give me a 10-cent raise, and I went in crying saying, "Hey, look, please, can you not give me that? If you give me that 10-cent raise, I go into this gray zone where I have to choose between paying for the insurance and the groceries. I have to choose between paying the electric bill and, I please, if you do that, it hurts me." And they're like, "We have to by law." And I was like, I mean, it's either give me a 20 an hour raise, and I don't mean 20 cents. You give me a $20 an hour raise, or don't give me one because you're putting me and my family in peril. And that's what really got me interested in learning how to teach people their capabilities, learning how to fight against a system that's stacked against you. And Oscar Wilde said it best, the best revenge is living well. So as we move through June and we end up having that Venus Jupiter conjunction, there's a lot we can use with it, but you can't just sit on your couch wishing things will move or sitting and praying with your hands closed. Remember, please, 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 nothing happens. You get nothing when you do that. Okay, nothing. So it's really, really important for you to understand what truly makes you feel secure. For some people, it's having enough groceries in the fridge. Other people need to make sure their dry goods are set. Other people, it's making sure you have a comfortable place to sleep. Other people, it's having clothing that feels good. Okay, that has the right textures, that does what you need to do, where you feel aesthetically pleased. It's okay to wanna look nice. Again, getting denied welfare when I needed it most because I looked too clean and put together will forever be something that makes me go, "Oh, really? I had to absolutely destroy my own dignity to get help?" You can need help and be put together. It's okay. I remember telling the first time I got denied, I was like, "Are you denying me because of this wool coat? Well, you obviously have resources." I mean, "This is from Goodwill." Are you kidding? I'm like, "Oh!" They didn't believe me because I was too well spoken. Because a well spoken woman wouldn't ever have been in a domestic violence situation. My God. Anyway, these things drive me nuts. But anyway, so notice I didn't just sit and write manifestations out. I took action. I helped other people as well. I learned so much. A lot of what I teach with the work, the framework for building your confidence, understanding where you find your security, the healing the money wound work, the living by Luna work. All of that started way back in the 90s as I was thrust into these kind of life and death decisions. And it was crazy. I'm here. I'm here in London recording and talking to you. Something back then I didn't think I'd ever be able to do again. I didn't think I'd ever be able to just stroll around London and enjoy good tea, have interesting conversations, see beautiful historic buildings, museums, get my poetry back. I didn't think I'd ever get that again back in the 90s and early 2000s when I first returned to the States. Don't rule anything out, but magical thinking without magical doing gets you nowhere, and you want to be able to empower yourself with some magic. So notice in that scenario, and I did, it was the best job I ever had, not because of the money, but because of the working environment. I learned a lot. You could tell I have a Gemini Venus. I learned a lot. I made good friends, and a lot of information I use today came my direction as a direct result of working there. Things don't always work out exactly to plan. Take it from this Virgo South Node conjunct Pluto. You don't get to plan in this lifetime, Laurie. They don't always work to plan. It's good to have some scaffolding or a framework to work with. And you want to build that in the first part of June as we go forward, because you'll be able to utilize that thumbnail sketch of a plan as we go towards that Venus Jupiter conjunction at the end of the month. And that energy rings out over time. It isn't just it's just that day. Okay. And it's like a gong being rung and the sound waves reverberate out into the future. So there's that. How exciting. All right. Well, that's what we got. You're heading into June with this. You need to stop listening to everybody else and what they think about how things need to be done. And you need to kind of dig down and understand what works for you and how it works for you. Stop arguing for your limitations. That is not the vibe right now. You can't keep blaming people or your past for where you're at right now and succeed. You're going to have to say, this is where I am right now. Here are the skills I possess. Here's the knowledge I possess. Here's what I like to do. And this is what I can do with it. That's going to move you forward. It doesn't get rid of the past. It isn't bypassing. It is a determined effort to move forward. By the way, quick interruption. Somebody on TikTok asked for a close up. Here's the nails. Here's the nails. Aren't they? They are simple. They're just a light pink. That's all. Anyway, you can't wait for people to pick you. And you can't wait for people to understand you. You can't wait for people to notice your hard work. The hardest workers don't get promotions. People who promote themselves get promotions. I talked to my membership and they were like, hey, do like a montage. So get ready for the montage of what's in the headlines. It is a teeny tiny snippet of a 2-minute recording. So if you want to know what's up and stay aware and prepared, you can join us in the Awake Space community, and you can find that link in the show notes, or go to the awakespacepodcast.com and become a member. Moon in Sagittarius is strumming battle hymns May 30th through June 1st. We've got electrical fires or malfunctions, international travel disrupted, flights grounded due to weather or political matter. Could see a former leader or leader held to account for corruption. I got a question mark on that. A religious figure makes a statement that causes political strife, most likely the Pope. I think that's really interesting. I had it under the Sagittarius moon, but he did make that announcement, which kind of called war on AI, which was kind of cool. Could see an explosion in Moscow or other Russian city of note. Could see issues with licenses and permits issued at any level of government. Look for local permits, especially. Scandal at major university, that'd be in the United States. Big weather, rain, flooding, big surf. Keep eye on the Mediterranean. June 1st through the 4th, we have the moon in Capricorn, and it's getting out the buggy whip. Rumors or leaks surrounding assassination attempts, explosive weather, erosion causing storms, issues in high elevations, including snow, or conversely, potential explosion, arson, most likely in commercial property or manufacturing. Rain event that causes infrastructure damage, buildings, bridges, and roads. Restaurant openings or celebrity chef in the news. Could see an earthquake offshore of South America or Micronesia above a 5.5. Could see challenges to leadership in multiple countries. High-profile woman makes the news, challenges status quo, or raises the stakes. Legal matters go against executives or an executive. Trump ally or allies retreat, revoke support, or turn on him. Big leadership shakeups, political and business. Could see a large company open up hiring. A big political figure, political leader has health crisis that leads to hospitalization or happens in public view. Chile, Ecuador could see a big fire near a body of water, warehouse, pier, dock, or coastal town. Broken water means in major cities Could see interesting art in public spaces, murals, graffiti, or music will most likely make local news. June 4th through the 6th, the moon in Aquarius is spinning pop rocks and cherry pits. So that's quite a combo. AMOC and other ocean currents in the news. Loss of a high ranking official or military figure has quick consequences. Big swings in crypto stocks, and keep eye on the bond market. Solar flares, aurora borealis comets, news of UAPs, workers organize cooperative, or there's a move to collectivism that makes headlines. Explosion, missile impacts a world leader, could be shrapnel or near a blast. Is this in Ukraine or Israel? Maybe Lebanon. JD Vance makes speech statement or is under pressure. Launch failure, rocket, missiles, etc., stabbing, taser misuse, cattle prods, electric shocks, drone attacks in public spaces, antiquities, archaeological digs, or ancient cities in the headlines. Really cool archaeological paleontology find. Could be significant, could be to do with ancient Bronze Age settlement, religion, or a scroll, but it could be a new dinosaur. Could see dispute over found treasure, assets, or shipwrecks. And we wind out the week, June 6th through the 9th, with the moon in Pisces. It's tap dancing in mud puddles. Big storm in the South Pacific could impact Western Australia, could see a typhoon. Hurricane could impact Hawaii, Pacific coast, could see tornadoes, whirlpools, and waterspouts. That's global. Security crisis in Europe could include NATO. Pharmaceutical breakthroughs and treatments could see musicians suddenly cancel tour dates or have one announce a concert that raises money for a cause. Shocking accident or issue with vehicle, airplane, and lightning. White phosphorus or other corrosive chemical disgust, exposed, etc. Issues with chemical or pharmaceutical plants. Explosion, oil, gas, pipeline, or refinery. Massive monsoons in Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Cambodia. New hit song, music, or something in the arts gets attention in a big way. So that's how we wind up that week. So I've got some stuff for various world leaders in the predictions as well. I like to keep that stuff tucked back away in the community. So if you want to find out more, make sure you join us in the Awake Space. You can go to theawakespacepodcast.com and join us in community. Have a hell of a good time in there. So if you're tired of things being always doomy and gloomy, the Awake Space is the antidote to that. So I went and I did a little more research on Andre Barbault and his basket that everybody's talking about. I talked about it last week as well. You can check that episode out if you haven't. I know it was a busy weekend, so people may not have tuned in. Go check. So again, a basket is an aspect pattern, and people often read too much into the aspect pattern itself versus what's actually happening in that pattern. I've been working on the Awake Space magazine. Remember, this is coming out June 1st, but I'm actually recording this in May. And so I'm finishing up the Awake Space magazine and I'm writing an article called What's in Barbault's Basket. And I'm going through understanding the dynamic energy that's in that container. What does a basket do? It holds things. It's a container for things. I do not equate Saturn as being part of the basket because I don't use 10-degree orbs. I use 8 degrees and more commonly 6 degrees. If you're a student of mine, you know why. I don't think for accuracy we want to go wide. I think people do that trying to make things fit. And I'm not a big fan of making things fit. It works or it doesn't work, kind of, So, but Saturn's kind of sitting and observing. If we want to humanize the planets, right? Make it a little anthropomorphic. Saturn is sitting and watching how this basket is holding. So when you have Pluto trine Uranus or Uranus. So when we look at what is happening in the basket, it puts the lotion on the skin or it gets the hose again. It's a little bit like that. I mean, we've got Jupiter in a trine with Neptune. You've got Uranus in a trine with Pluto. This is already very dynamic energy. Okay. We've got the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, all connected via sextile. Okay. And then Jupiter being a tertiary, kind of activating it as it's in opposition with Pluto. It's a very, very dynamic time. And it happens mid-July. Okay. It happens mid-July. So we're looking at structural changes. I know a lot of times people are like, oh, trines are good. And in my experience, trines are. It's not about good. It's not about bad. It's not about malefic, benefic. And some days I feel like Don Quixote chasing windmills as I try to teach people to let go of duality, let go of this idea of all good, all bad. There's a whole lot that happens and it's perceptual. Okay. Just like I told the story a little earlier in the podcast of me trying to get help after leaving my husband and everybody saying, well, you left your man. I'm sorry I didn't pull a Tammy Wynette, but I broke social rules, right? I broke social rules. Even if it was for my own safety and my children's safety, I broke social rules. I chose to be independent. Therefore, I had my bed to lie in. Well, I've made a damn good bed. But anyway, when we look at this particular basket, seems like almost the lid is shut with Jupiter in opposition to Pluto. It's going to take some force to open the basket to look for the goodies inside as Jupiter makes its trine to Neptune and Jupiter makes its sextile to Uranus. Neptune and Pluto are sextile for some of the very last times in our lives, because for over 70 years, Neptune and Pluto have been sextile. If you're like, I have it in my chart, everybody does, but not for long. As soon as Pluto moves out of orb with Neptune, it will be a very long time before we see that sextile action happening again. We have, in the last 70 years, gone through massive social changes. That's why there's a push against it, right? I think because of the nature of the Pope, given he knows his power, he knows his job, and he is a very educated Pope. I mean, they're all educated, but in different ways. He's up to date on technology. He's up to date on the ramifications of the economic decisions people are making. And he is doing his job to afflict the comfortable. You comfort the afflicted, you afflict the comfortable. He's doing a very good job in that. And I think he plays a role in this process. He has certainly laid down the gauntlet. So I think this basket will show institutional changes across the board, including in the church. No, I don't think they're going to be cool about gay marriage all of a sudden. And no, I don't think they're going to be like, yeah, women should be priests right now. But they're getting the ball rolling for those things. I think you'll see some reformation in this time period. You're going to see the people not allow Pandora's box to be opened. People will be like, no, we don't like what's happening. And you'll see things happening more on the ground locally, which is something I've been telling you guys to do. Be local, be local. You want progressive candidates, you got to get them in locally. You've got to get them into school boards and planning commissions. You often vote for who's on a planning commission in your cities, your counties, or they're appointed by elected officials. You need to know how your particular area is run. Learn the rules and then play the rules. Use the rules against them. You can't fight a system. A system is designed to protect itself. Okay. You have to learn the rules. You might think they're bogus or boring or out of date. That's great. Use them, get in charge, and then change them, because that's what the opposition did. You're not going to fight them and win if you don't change things. And that can be, if you're like, but I don't know anything and I can't help, Laurie. You know what? If people are out doing the do and you're good at making cupcakes, take cupcakes to the people showing up. Okay. Do some fundraising if you can. And again, pick up garbage. There are many roles available. Accountability season is coming for us all, and it includes people who have argued for their limitations. If you have consistently said, well, I can't because, and this is in my way, and I can't do this, it's not going to get easier for you. It's not. I'm not saying you don't have problems. I'm not saying life is easy for you. I'm just saying it's not going to get better for you if you keep doing what you've been doing. You have to switch it up. And that's part of this energy as well. The people who will most benefit by this energy are the people who are willing to show up in a different way. They're willing to move from inspiration. They're willing, because Mars will be in Gemini during that basket. So, willing to use their brains and pivot, willing to do more than one thing, multitasking. Okay. People who think before they take action, that will all be beneficial during that time. How do I know Mars will be in Gemini? Because it's going to be on my Venus because my birthday is like the day after the basket is perfected. So the basket will still be in action during my solar return. Am I excited about that? It's okay. I'm sure things will happen. Believe it or not, I don't worry about the future. You're like, but that's your job. But I don't. We are born, we die. That is a given. You are born, you die. Everything you do in between is living. And I've been telling you this for many, many years. In fact, I wrote it in the original Living by Luna. So I wrote it in the original Living by Luna. So yeah. So I'll keep talking about Barbault's basket, and you can catch the article in the Awake Space magazine as the magazine comes out end of the week. Thank you so much to all of our magazine subscribers. I'll be doing deep dives on how you personally can use the energy. So make sure you get me your questions. And that's for magazine subscribers. But if you've got questions about Barbault's basket and what it means, feel free to leave a comment on YouTube or on Spotify, wherever comments can be left. I'll be glad to answer those. Or you can come into the Awake Space community and put them in the post where I announce the episode every single Monday. I'm Laurie Rivers. Thank you for joining me.